ਜਿੰਨੇ ਵੀ ਧਾਰਮਿਕ ਅਦਾਰੇ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਇੱਕ ਖਾਸ ਡਿਸਟੈਂਸ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਮੁਜ਼ਾਹਰੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੀਤੇ ਜਾ ਸਕਣਗੇ। ਇਹ ਕੀ ਹੈ, ਕਿੰਨਾ ਡਿਸਟੈਂਸ ਹੋਏਗਾ, ਉਹ ਕਿਉਂ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹਨ, ਇਸ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਆਨਰੇਬਲ ਅਟਾਰਨੀ ਜਨਰਲ ਅਤੇ ਡਿਪਟੀ ਪ੍ਰੀਮੀਅਰ ਨਿੱਕੀ ਸ਼ਰਮਾ ਜੀ ਮੇਰੇ ਨਾਲ ਹਨ। Minister, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Good morning. Nice to be back on your show.
So could you explain it to our listeners why you are doing this, why there's a bubble zone?
It's just to respect all of the places of worship across the province, so the gurdwaras, the mandirs, the synagogues, the churches that are sanctuaries for people where they go to worship and practice their religion, and they're important. And we heard very rising incidents that were happening in multiple religions and multiple places that really led us to thinking we need to offer protection for people so they can feel safe in getting to their, going to pray, being with their community without intimidation or harassment. We even had some stories of people showing up at places just to spread hate speech, to intimidate people from entering. And a lot of times they're families that are going, elders, people going to connect with their religion and their community. So we needed to make sure that these places are protected. So the legislation will stop that type of behavior from happening around any place of worship in the province.
What kind of distance limit you have placed on the demonstrators from the gate of the religious institution?
So the protections would be from the property line. So sometimes places have big parking lots and they have access points. So at the end of the property line, and that would include, sometimes people have community halls and things. It's not just the Gurdwara or whatever on that property. So what it would be the property line, then 20 meters around that. So basically across the street. So you have a really circle of protection kind of around that property.
So 20 meters from the property line of the place of worship, is that correct?
That's right.
So then they are allowed to use loudspeakers and, the tools that demonstrators usually use?
No, one of the things that we were asked about is that what about these loudspeakers that even if they sit outside of the zone, then it's still affecting people. So if they're intimidating or harassing or stopping people from entering by using a loudspeaker, even if it's happening outside the 20 meters, it would still be caught by this because the sanctuary zone is about stopping intimidation and harassment. So just because you put something outside of the zone that's a loudspeaker that's doing it doesn't mean you can get away with that. So that would be caught by this law.
Well, if the provincial government is chiseling a law, then why there is a responsibility of the place of worship to put the signs on? I was reading through it that every place of worship has to put a sign on.
It's a good question. We were trying to figure this out about a lot of times places of worship are just everywhere. Sometimes they can look like a house. Sometimes they can look like very much like a church or a gurdwara. And sometimes they're not. So we had to find a way. It's very different than schools, right? So we had to find a way to make sure that people know that this law is enforced. So we're going to make it very simple for people to put up a sign just to say this is a place of worship that's protected by this law. And that will help it be just something that can stop things from happening. And it was just a way of us making it clear what the laws were to people.
Mm-hmm. Ms. Sharma, there are already some laws regarding this demonstration and any violence close or in front of or inside the place of worship. Why duplicating?
Yeah, this works together with those laws. We want to bring down the temperature. We want to stop people from feeling scared to go to their place of worship. This stops the behavior from happening in the first place. When you have criminal code stuff, it requires it to already have happened, and then there's a criminal law that applies, right? So the police can come and charge somebody for doing something, and sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, based on their decision making.
Mm-hmm.
So although those laws are important, and I'm glad they're there, this creates kind of like a blanket around places of worship. So that blanket of protection will stop stuff from happening and make people feel like this is a safe zone. This is a sanctuary that respects my right to practice my religion. And I know that people can't do this zone. So it's more of a tool to stop it from happening in the first place rather than responding once it happens.
By implementing this law, don't you think we'll be kind of limiting or interfering with the constitutional right of demonstration of the people?
Well, everything is a balance. We always have to balance people's right to express themselves with people's rights to express their religion or practice their religion, and we think we're hitting the right balance. We think you can express yourself. You can peacefully protest. If you're doing something that's harassing or intimidating people, take it outside of the access zone because you're not allowed to do that. So people can access their religious place without that intimidation. So life is all about balancing how we respect people's rights. And I think that we're balancing it in a way that keeps people safe to practice their religion, but also allows people to express themselves, just creates an access zone that protects people. So that's how we balanced it.
Is there any sunset clause in these laws?
Yeah, every time you do these kind of laws, there always needs to be a sunset clause legally, and that's just a chance for us to check in once the time's up to see that we got it right when it came to balancing people's rights, and that when we revisit it, did it work? Is it something we need to change? Did we strike the right balance? And all those are important questions for us, and so that's why there are sunset clauses on this type of legislation.
On the other hand, Ms. Sharma, that ambassador to Canada from U.S., Pete Hegstra, has said many nasty things about Canada. And now the Premier is quite chums with him, had a long, long meeting. What's going on?
Yeah, you know what? I think there's a difference between being diplomatic and being chums. I think the Premier expressed pretty clearly what our concerns are. And I think in return, he was respectful about what the American concerns are, perspectives. We obviously have a lot of differences right now. We are currently banning alcohol and doing things in response to some of the things they're doing to our softwood lumber and all those things. So I think they were able to have a conversation that was direct. They got to the point without the kind of bombastic rhetoric that just is for media bites, right? It was about having a real conversation.
Mm-hmm. You were also there when the announcement was made for time change. Why did BC have to change the time one last time and not just stick with the standard time? A lot of people are asking for standard time, and some people are saying it's a kind of, distractor from the budget.
Yeah, every time the time change came up, I would always get media questions about, are we going to stop? Are we going to stop with the time change? A lot of people hate it. They hate that we're doing it. So about last year, when the time change came, and we usually said we want to align with our American partners, we want to make sure trade routes are okay, those kind of things. And we thought about it, and things had changed quite a bit since then. We really want to stand on our own 2 feet. Yukon made the transition to daylight savings time, and they're our neighbor, our Canadian neighbor. So we decided that, people hate the time change. We did a survey of it not long ago, and it was overwhelming that people are not happy with the two-time time change. It's bad for our health to change our time twice a year. And in that survey that we did, most people said daylight savings time. You get an extra hour of sunlight in the summertime, and it's the time that people do most of their activities. So, that's why we made that decision.
Mm-hmm. Ms. Sharma, in closing, would you like to say anything else about this bubble zone?
Yeah, just that we really respect people's right to practice their religion, and we are so lucky to live in a province that has such a rich diversity of religions and people coming from all parts of the world to practice their religion and to live a peaceful life. We want to protect that. So I think it's really important that people know that this legislation is coming, and that we're hoping that it passes quickly in the House.
Thank you very much for joining us today, and talk to you again.
Yeah, talk to you soon. Take care. Bye.
BC ਦੇ ਅਟਾਰਨੀ ਜਨਰਲ ਨਿੱਕੀ ਸ਼ਰਮਾ ਜੀ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਸਨ। ਮੇਰਾ ਖਿਆਲ ਹੈ ਅਸੀਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਖਬਰਾਂ ਲਗਾਤਾਰ ਦੇਈ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ। ਪਤਾ ਹੋਣਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੇ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਤਾ ਕਿ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਘਟਨਾਵਾਂ ਹੋਈਆਂ ਸੀ ਇੱਕ ਸਰੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਇੱਕ ਬਰੈਂਪਟਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਿ ਮੁਜ਼ਾਹਰੇ ਹੋਣ ਲੱਗ ਪਏ ਧਾਰਮਿਕ ਥਾਵਾਂ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ, ਕੁਝ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੇ ਅੰਦਰ ਜਾਣ ਦੀ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕੀਤੀ ਅਤੇ ਹੱਲਾ ਗੁੱਲਾ ਕੀਤਾ ਸੀ। ਉਸ ਦੇ ਸਬੰਧ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ BC ਦੀ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਨੇ ਇੱਕ ਨਵੇਂ ਕਾਨੂੰਨ ਬਣਾਏ ਨੇ ਕਿ ਕਿਸੇ ਵੀ ਧਾਰਮਿਕ ਅਦਾਰੇ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਪਲੇਸ ਆਫ ਵਰਸ਼ਿਪ ਹੈ, ਜਿੱਥੇ ਲੋਕ ਪੂਜਾ ਪਾਠ ਕਰਨ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਨੇ, ਉਹਦੇ 20 ਫੁੱਟ ਦੇ ਏਰੀਏ 'ਚ 21 ਫੁੱਟ ਦਰਅਸਲ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਪ੍ਰੋਪਰਟੀ ਲਾਈਨ ਤੋਂ 21 ਫੁੱਟ ਦੇ ਏਰੀਏ 'ਚ ਕੋਈ ਡੈਮੋਨਸਟ੍ਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੀਤੀ ਜਾ ਸਕਦੀ। 20 ਫੁੱਟ ਦੇ ਏਰੀਏ 'ਚ 21 ਫੁੱਟ 'ਤੇ ਕੀਤੀ ਜਾ ਸਕਦੀ ਹੈ। ਔਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਕਿ ਉੱਥੇ ਲਾਊਡ ਸਪੀਕਰ ਲਾ ਕੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉੱਚੀ ਉੱਚੀ ਕੋਈ ਮੰਦੀਆਂ ਚੰਗੀਆਂ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ, ਲਾਊਡ ਸਪੀਕਰ ਦੀ ਮਨਾਹੀ ਹੋਵੇਗੀ। ਸੋ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਲੋਕ ਸ਼ਾਂਤਮਈ ਮੁਜ਼ਾਹਰਾ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਜੀ ਸਦਕੇ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਨੇ, ਪਰ ਹੁਣ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਕੋਲ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਪਾਵਰਸ ਦੇ ਦਿੱਤੀਆਂ ਨੇ। ਮੈਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਪੁੱਛਿਆ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਵੀ ਕਾਨੂੰਨ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਕਿ ਕੋਈ ਹਿੰਸਕ ਘਟਨਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਵਾਪਰ ਸਕਦੀ, ਪੁਲਿਸ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਫੜ ਸਕਦੀ ਹੈ ਜਾਂ ਸ਼ਸ਼ਕੇਰ ਸਕਦੀ ਹੈ। ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਕਾਨੂੰਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਲੱਗਦੇ ਹੀ ਸਪੋਰਟਿੰਗ ਲਾਜ਼ ਨੇ ਇਹ, ਕਿ ਕਿਸੇ ਵੀ ਧਾਰਮਿਕ ਪਲੇਸ ਦੇ 20 ਫੁੱਟ ਨੇੜੇ, 20 ਫੁੱਟ ਤੋਂ ਪਰੇ ਕੀਤੀ ਜਾ ਸਕਦੀ ਹੈ, ਨਹੀਂ ਤਾਂ ਕੋਈ ਡੈਮੋਨਸਟ੍ਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਪ੍ਰੋਟੈਸਟਰਸ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਮੁਜ਼ਾਹਰਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰ ਸਕਣਗੇ। ਸੋ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਸੰਬੰਧ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਜ਼ਿੰਮੇਵਾਰੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈ ਉਸ ਪਲੇਸ ਆਫ ਵਰਸ਼ਿਪ ਦੀ, ਭਾਵੇਂ ਉਹ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰਾ ਹੈ, ਮੰਦਰ ਹੈ, ਮਸਜਿਦ ਹੈ, ਭਾਵੇਂ ਉਹ ਗਿਰਜਾ ਘਰ ਹੈ ਜਾਂ ਜੋ ਵੀ ਹੈ, ਉਹ ਸਿਨਾਗੋਗ ਹੈ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਜ਼ਿੰਮੇਵਾਰੀ ਹੈ ਇੱਥੇ ਸਾਈਨ ਲਾਉਣਾ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਸ ਧਾਰਮਿਕ ਅਦਾਰੇ ਦੇ 20 ਫੁੱਟ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮੁਜ਼ਾਹਰਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ। ਸੋ ਇਹ ਨਵਾਂ ਕਾਨੂੰਨ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਬਣ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ ਉਸ ਦੇ ਮੁਤਲਕ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਦੱਸਿਆ।